Welcome to the KSU Flight Simulator experience. In this video, we will be discussing the fundamentals of flight, instruments needed, and the flight that you will need to be able to perform. To begin, let's briefly discuss the parts of the plane. So let's work our way from front to back on the aircraft. Here in this image, we can see the overall structure. So in the front, we have the propeller, and attached to that is going to be our fuselage. Underneath our fuselage, we have our landing gear, and we also have our wings. Next, we have our ailerons, our horizontal stabilizer, vertical stabilizer, elevator, and our rudder. Next, let's discuss the flight controls in the aircraft. In flight, there are three axes. There's longitudinal, lateral, and normal. The plane moves in relation to these axes by roll, pitch, and yaw. So let's take a look at how our inputs on the plane work with our output. The first instrument that we're discussing is the yoke. The yoke controls the elevator and the ailerons. Pulling on the yoke pitches the aircraft up, and pushing on the yoke pitches the aircraft down. Next, turning the aileron to the left and to the right rolls the aircraft in the respective direction, as shown here. Next up, we have the rudder pedals. The rudder pedals are underneath the yoke and they look like this. The rudder pedals control the rudder on the aircraft. So, pushing the rudder will cause the plane to yaw to the left and to the right, respectively, as shown here. Lastly, there are differential brakes as well, and those are activated by pressing on the top of the rudders at the same time. Then, we have our throttle. The throttle is responsible for outputting power on the aircraft. Pushing the throttle up increases our thrust, and pushing our throttle down decreases our thrust, as shown here. Lastly, we have our flaps, shown here. The flaps help the plane descend. To engage them, we press the switch down, and to disengage them, we press the switch up. Up next, Andrew will discuss the flight instruments and gauges.
The airspeed indicator tells the pilot how fast air is moving over the wings in knots. The green region is the normal operating range, the yellow region is the caution operating range, and the white region is the flap operating range. The do not exceed speed is marked with a red tick. Next is the artificial horizon. The artificial horizon tells the pilots the airplane's attitude relative to the horizon. The blue represents the sky, the brown represents the ground, the white line represents the horizon, the yellow lines represent the wings of the airplane, and the yellow dot represents the nose of the airplane. Those horizontal tick marks show the pitch angle, and the circumferential tick marks show the roll angle. Next we have the altimeter. The altimeter tells the pilot how high he is in feet above sea level. It works like a clock where the hour hand represents thousands of feet above sea level, and the minute hand represents hundreds of feet above sea level. Next we have the turn and bank indicator. The turn and bank indicator helps the pilot make coordinated turns. Next we have the heading indicator. The heading indicator works like a compass. It shows the pilot the airplane's heading relative to the nose of the airplane. Lastly is the vertical speed indicator. The vertical speed indicator tells the pilot how quickly the airplane is ascending or descending. If the arrow is above the zero, it's climbing at that many hundreds of feet per minute, and if the arrow is below the zero, it's descending at that many hundreds of feet per minute.
Great! Now that we've seen which instruments and controls we need, let's discuss our flight mission. The mission that we'll be flying is a traffic pattern. The goal is to fly all 5 legs. Those 5 legs are upwind, crosswind, downwind, base, and final. We also want to make sure that we can land the aircraft on the same runway that it took off from. In our mission, we're going to be flying from McCollum Airport, so let's get started into flying our mission. Before we take off, we want to disengage our parking brake on the aircraft. To do so, we press it in, then we're going to start rolling out, and after we start rolling out, we're going to advance our throttle smoothly, and we want to stay centered on the runway using the rudders during takeoff. Once we've taken off, let's pay attention to our instruments. Here we need to keep our wings leveled, and we need to climb to 500 feet above ground level. In our case, McCollum Airport is 1,000 feet above mean sea level, so climbing to 500 feet above ground level, the altimeter is going to read out approximately 1,500 feet, which is measured in mean sea level. After reaching 500 feet above ground level, we're going to make our first left turn onto crosswind. Once you've completed your turn on a crosswind, your heading should be facing north. Now keep this heading for approximately 15 seconds and continue climbing. After 15 seconds have approximately passed, we're going to make our second left turn onto downwind. Here we're going to be facing west, and we want to continue climbing up to 1,000 feet above ground level, which will be 2,000 feet on the altimeter. Keep this heading for 30 seconds before our turn onto base. After our 30 seconds have passed, we can reduce our throttle to about 1/4 and deploy our first set of flaps. We can then continue our descent and make our third left turn into base. After turning into base, keep an eye out for the runway. You don't want to miss it. Once you have the runway spotted, engage the second set of flaps, and then we can conduct our last left turn onto final. After turning into final, we want to engage our third set of flaps, and then we want to line up with the runway and then come in for our landing. Once you've landed safely on the runway, stay centered using the rudders. Then, apply the toe brakes to the wheels, and once you've come to a complete stop, engage the parking brake. So, this concludes our video. We hope that you found this video useful. If you'd like to try the simulator, please use the contact information shown here. When contacting us, please include your name, your availability, phone number, and your email address so that we can follow up with you. We'd like to thank you for your time, and we hope to see you soon.